Good evening, everybody. It is time for Quantum Spirituality, where we talk about things of the spiritual nature at the tiniest possible detail. And this is a part of Three Chord Live, which consists of Bill Thrasher, Michelle Brown, Tammy Wilson, Kyle Butler, Catherine Toon, Mike Zinker, and yours truly. And also part of the Global Online Ministry Alliance, which consists of Lynn Bennett Jr., Kyle Butler, Catherine Toon, Mike Zinker, Mike Porter, Keith Giles, and moi. And I hope that you are hearing me. I hope that all of you are doing well. We're going to give it a minute, let some people jump on, see how we're working out, if we're tracking. Just want to make sure that this is going. And it looks like we are going. Uh-oh, there's my music. All right, can y'all hear me okay? Before I go any further, can you hear me okay? It's like Verizon. And while we're doing that, let's do some sharing. Okay, Joanne, thank you. Glad that you can hear me. So let's go ahead and share to Goma, and we're gonna share also to my page. Now this is music y'all probably don't know nothing about. This is Leon Ware, and he wrote some old stuff for Quincy Jones. He's a brother from Detroit, and this is like one of my favorite songs of all time. It's called "Don't Stay Away." Love this song. And it's funny story about the song is that the last time I heard this song was in 1981. And so from 1981 until 2019, I had not heard this song. And I've always wondered whatever happened to the song. Well, thank you, Apple Music, because you got the brother hooked up. So let's do one more share here. And we'll get this on 3 chord. So for all of you that are joining, Joanne, Chris, Rob, Faye, thank y'all for joining. It's good to have you here. Derek, good to see you. Man, I did a message on Sunday for my Sunday Start that talked about we are the message. And so I'm going to expound on that from the quantum level. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. You are the message. You are the message. So let's go ahead and fade that out, and let's get to it, shall we? So on Sunday, I was saying that basically we are the message from God to humanity. We are a message from the Creator to creation. That means everybody. Think about this. On the frequency spectrums that radio broadcasts on, there are many different frequencies. And I would say that literally, because it's like a number line, that literally there is an infinite number of frequencies available. And so we are individually one of those frequencies that's being broadcast by the Creator to the universe. And once you catch this, I mean, this is really something that, in my opinion, my humble opinion, that this is really life-changing. Here's the deal. That in the beginning, God, Source, Creator, created everything. Did you know that if you look at the Bible, and I mean, if you read it in context, that everything that was to be created was created in the beginning? And if you go, and I'm not going to, y'all know I'm not a Bible literalist, but I want to try to use this to common size the message so that people who are on the Christian spectrum that they'll get it. But in John chapter 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And the funny thing is that we often attribute that word to Jesus. However, Jesus himself said, I and the Father are one, and he prayed toward the end of his earthly ministry that we would be one with him as he is one with the Father, which means that by his definition, that we are one with him and he is one with source. And this is why, and I know people get really bent out of shape with me when I say this, but I tell you that you are God. You are God just as much as God is God. The only difference is that you were created to occupy this three-dimensional space. God has infinite dimensions. God the creator, God the source, has infinite dimensions, but we have the ability to create in this three-dimensional space just like God has the ability to create an infinite space. And when you see this, this changes everything. And we are created to create. I mean, this is what love does because God is love. If you look at 1 John 4 and 8, God is love. And what happens when, I mean, think about this. I gave this example on Sunday. What happens that when you're in love, when you fall in love, you get creative. I mean, you'll pick up a guitar, you'll put a pen to page and write poetry or short stories. You'll start reading romance novels and you get all in because that's what love does. Love makes you create. Love makes you just burst forth with everything that's in you. And here's the thing. Honestly, not everybody is gifted to write, like, say, commercial fiction or even commercial nonfiction. Not everyone is gifted to do public speaking. Not everyone is gifted to sing or to play a musical instrument. But everybody has a gift and everybody has a talent. Everybody has something that when love is revealed, that this, whatever it is, this creative instinct or this creative notion that's baked into each and every one of us, it comes out. It just comes out. And one of the interesting things about humanity, and this is not just humanity, y'all, everything that's living in the earth has this thing called DNA. Now, DNA is basically the building block of life. And every living thing has it. And that means that every living thing has a message because if you look at DNA, DNA is not just this protein string. It also happens to be an information storage facility. It's like a hard drive on your disk or it's like the memory on your phone. It's a means of containing some data, some information. And here's the thing about information is that information is something that is conveyed from one source to a recipient with the intention of being understood. What do I mean by this? There are things in your DNA. Like, for example, my hair is varying shades of brown, black, and blonde. Somehow that was encoded into my DNA and it was passed on to me. And so when I had kids, it was passed on to them. There are certain attributes, like I have green eyes, and this was something I apparently got from my grandfather because he had gray eyes. and and so on and so forth. Everybody has these characteristics, and these characteristics are meant to be expressed to communicate something from the past into the future. In the beginning, God created humanity, and He created humanity, or she created humanity to express something. You know, something was to be shared with humanity from God, and that shared data is us. It's us. And the other thing that's really beautiful about this is the diversity of humanity, that when you have white people and black people and brown people and yellowish people, you have all people of all different hues. You have people with straight hair and curly hair, kinky hair. You have people with all kinds of eye color: green, blue, brown. Elizabeth Taylor is said to have had violet eyes. All of these different characteristics, that they're something that they are expressed for the purpose of communicating something. And the other thing is that when you see that you are a means of communication, you see that you are something that God has put in the earth to tell somebody something. And I really believe that the overarching message of God is that God is love, and that she wants us to know that each and every one of us are her offspring, and that each and every one of us carries her DNA. And that this message is intended to be shared, to be expressed with humanity. It's expected to be spread abroad. And it's funny how there's a passage of scripture that says that my word will not go forth and return void, but it will accomplish that which it was intended. And I believe that that's from Isaiah. That word is you and me. In other words, when you go forth into the world, you are not going to return void. Why? Because even if you don't discover what the different possibilities of purpose that are within your range of potential, even if you never experience or express that still you are alive, you are breathing, you are in this world, you are coming into contact with other people, you are touching other people, you are loving other people are touching you and loving you. You are in creation, you're breathing the air, you're drinking the water, you're eating the food, you're swimming in the oceans. All of these things, you are doing something that is giving creation or the Creator glory. You are a message. And that's really, really cool, because when you see that, and you see that you are not just a messenger, but you are the message, and that every person you come into contact with is a message as well, what you do then is you start to move from theology to divine anthropology. In other words, I'm not trying to understand this nebulous God that I cannot see, but I'm trying to understand the humanity that I am in contact with on a day-to-day basis. And when I do that, now I am actually honoring God, because I'm honoring humanity. Humanity is divine. Humanity is the offspring of the Creator. Father God, Mother God, Source, Creator, whatever you call God. You are that. You are that expression. You are, in the book of Hebrews says that Jesus is the divine, or is the express image of the Father. Listen, if Jesus is one with the Father and we are one with Him, and if He's the express image of the Father, guess what that makes us? The express image of the Father. And this really plays into the days that we're living in, because there are some people that don't want to acknowledge the humanity of other human beings. It's a crying shame that any human being has to go to a court of law in order to codify their humanity, in order to justify their humanity. When that happens, it says that humanity is denigrated and disrespected, that it's devalued. But if I see that you are God, as I see that I am God, then that means that if I put on the lenses that allow me to see God as this fantastic entity, the great sky God, if I see humanity in that same lens, then that means I am not going to disrespect, harm, oppress, disenfranchise, or otherwise mistreat any other part of humanity. Why? Because that humanity is God. And here's the interesting thing about this is that I want to get back to the DNA because there's really some quantum stuff there. Because there are parts of the DNA strand that we don't really understand. For example, plants have DNA and people have DNA. But it's funny that the DNA from plants, even though it is the same basic building block, it will not splice with human DNA. Or if you take dog DNA and human DNA, it doesn't splice. It doesn't work. And, there are people who have worked for good and people who have worked for evil, who have tried to splice these different genes together to try to create something new, and they can't. Which means that not only are you a message, but part of your message is an encoded or encrypted message. Do you know that part of the way your cell phone works, this is not a phone, by the way. It's not a telephone at all. Not like we understand telephones. This is actually a radio transceiver. And it works on a specific band of frequencies. And with those frequencies, it is able to transmit and receive radio signals between antenna. And these antenna drive the signal to a switch to another tower, and then it's broadcast there. This is how you're able to make calls, not just around the corner, but across town, across the state, across the country, and around the world. Because these signals are able to be switched from one cell or tower to another switch and to another cell tower somewhere else. But what keeps my phone calls from overlapping on your phone calls is something called encoding or encryption. And there are different layers of encryption. There's civilian grade encryption, which basically is your M1A1 phone encryption. But then there's also military grade encryption or intel grade encryption. In other words, when when people from the CIA talk to each other on a secure line, it's encrypted so that the average person cannot tap into the conversation. They can't listen in. And we are encrypted in that same manner. And I believe that the message, God is so concerned about the right message being conveyed that's why animal and plant DNA or human and plant DNA can't be mixed up, because God doesn't want a mixed message. He wants what he wants or she wants to be said to the proper recipients. And even then, have you ever asked yourself, why can't I just understand people? I know I ask myself all the time, why can't, this is one of the great ones, and this is very sexist, but it's a very appropriate analogy, is that men say, I can't understand women. Women say, I can't understand men. Why? Because there's something encoded in the DNA of a man that's encoded, that's something different encoded in the DNA of a woman, and it makes us different. It makes us different. And there's all kinds of characteristics that are expressed in DNA as hair color, eye color, skin color, sexuality, all of these different things, gender, all of these things are encoded in the DNA. So there are some things that are simply not meant to be understood by each other. Now, this is what I think is really awesome. That when you find people that are really empathetic, when they really get empathy, they understand people at a different level. Empaths are special. But I think that empathy is not something that some people just get and other people don't get. I just think that there are some people that are able to tap into empathy, and those are the empaths. And they understand humanity, and sometimes they understand humanity to the point that it hurts. I know people that they are able to sense things from people, and if there is sadness prevailing around them, then they too will get sad because they have this empathy. They so deeply want to experience what the other people around them are experiencing, or maybe not even that they want to, it's just that it's turned on by default. Think of it as a hidden app or an Easter egg. I don't know if you guys know what Easter eggs. They're like hidden features, and sometimes you'll find them in your car, you'll find them in your phone, you'll find them in different software and all of that. Some of the things that are in our DNA are like Easter eggs. They're things that are waiting to be decoded. And I also believe that there are certain things that are in the DNA strand. This is my belief that if you look at the first humans, whenever when God created the very first human beings, let's say Adam and Eve, for the sake of argument. I'm trying not to get biblical here, but let's just say the first humans. I believe that the first humans that were put on earth, that they had no limits. They didn't have limits like you and I had limits. I believe that they could swim to the deepest part of the ocean, and I also believe that they could fly or levitate or possibly even transport, in other words, dematerialize and rematerialize in another space. But something happened, the sin thing. I'm not going down that rabbit hole, but something flipped that switch off. And then also, if you look in the Bible, you see that people lived a lot longer. People lived like 1,000 years. And then suddenly that was turned off. That part of the DNA was turned off. Or it was made dormant. And so I think that there are certain things in the DNA that are not meant to be discovered until we really kind of get our shit together as humanity. In other words, until we learn to live together with true empathy and compassion, I just believe that there are certain features in the human, in the earth suit, if you will, that are just turned off. But I think that once humanity gets to the point when we begin to live truly in love, that we begin to truly have empathy and compassion for each other. And I don't think that it necessarily has to be every single person. However, I do believe that this has to be the prevailing attitude among humanity. Right now, it's not. Right now, humanity is at odds with each other, and we're at odds with each other over the dumbest shit. We're at odds with each other over skin color. We're at odds with each other because of the way we believe. We're at odds with each other because of language or because of nationality. We're at odds with each other. And until those things go away, until we can live in a world without borders, until we can learn to live together without language differences or gender differences or sexuality differences, until we get to the point where we begin to accept and embrace one another for what and whom we are, that these features will lie dormant. And there are things that scientists don't understand about DNA. Like they'll look at the sequence of DNA, and there's been this great big effort called the DNA mapping exercise or something like that, where they tried to map DNA. So what they're doing is they're trying to figure out how to stop birth defects, how to help people live healthier lives. And some of the things they figured out, and some things they'll look at a particular strand of DNA and they'll say, well, I don't understand how this fits into the sequence. I don't know. Maybe that's the part where we're telepathic or telekinetic. Maybe this is the part where we're able to levitate or fly. Maybe this is the part where we're able to expose our gills and swim like fish. Because, again, if we look at it from the biblical perspective, that we are supposed to have dominion in the earth. How can you have dominion over that which you cannot participate in. If we're supposed to have dominion over the birds of the air, then yes, we should be able to fly. If we're supposed to have dominion over everything that creeps and crawls on the earth, then we should have dominion on the ground. And if we are to have dominion over the fish in the sea, then that means that we need to be in the water as well. But we're not. And that says something. That's actually an indictment of humanity, not condemnation, but an indictment, just to say that this is something that for whatever reason we don't get it. We don't get it. But this message, have you ever ran into somebody and they said something to you, or they made a gesture toward you, or they did something for you, and you say, man, that had to be a divine occurrence. That had to be something divine. Well, guess what, folks? That is something divine. That's when the message that was intended for you got to you. You dig what I'm saying? This is where that actually connects. And you being the Word of God, you at that point, if you're the messenger and you're delivering the message, you have gone forth and accomplished what was purpose and have not returned void. You know, I think that when the time comes that we shed our earth suit, that our earth suit dies, which I believe that when we get to love, then when we really understand love, that the earth suit will stop dying. And I'll get to that in a minute. But when we accomplish this, and let's say we shed our earth suit and we go on to eternity, I believe that Papa, Mama, God, Source will ask us, hey, how was it? And you'll say, I did a whole bunch of stuff and it was awesome. Even if you didn't really accomplish everything that you wanted to in life, which I believe that all of us have this incredible range of potential in which are a myriad of purposes that we can do. And this is the thing, I say this all the time, and it saddens me because I believe the cemeteries are full of people who have not tapped into that range of potential. They haven't experienced anything close to purpose because they never tried. But as I was saying, that the Earth suit and DNA. You know, I have a scar right here. This is I got cut with a knife in a fight, and that's a long story. But this thing healed up, but it's healed up in such a way that you can see where something happened. But it healed up, right? I didn't die from this. And the wound actually closed. And I believe that the human body is designed to live forever. As a matter of fact, scientists really don't know why humans age. I mean, they understand oxidation and they understand the slowing down of cell regeneration, but why do these things happen? Because your body can heal itself. You can break a bone and your body will heal that. You can have an open wound and your body will heal that. You can have a sickness or a disease and your body can heal that. So by all of that, we come to the conclusion that the body is meant to repair itself. So why doesn't it repair itself from aging? Scientists really don't know. Because that's something that's in that strand of DNA that runs through every fabric of your being, every fiber of your being. There's something in that that's encoded, and it's the encrypted code for eternal life in flesh. Because honestly, if God is love and death causes grieving, but God never dies, then why would God create something to die? You know, certain things die, trees die, plants die, and all of that, but their seed lives on and it exists in perpetuity. And there are some trees that live hundreds, even thousands of years. I believe that once we tap into that which makes the human animal eternal in flesh and not just spirit, that we'll see everything else change. And I believe that also a big part of this is vibration. You know, in quantum mechanics, we talk about vibration. The vibration is the way that I'm able to distinguish between the glass and the juice. It's something that makes this glass solid and something that makes this juice liquid. And there's something that makes this air gaseous. What is it? I mean, because everything is made up of virtually the same raw material, but yet there are different manifestations of it. And we understand how temperature impacts vibration, that when things get very hot, they vaporize, and when they get very cold, they solidify. So we understand all of that, but aside from temperature, that in the natural, things have different states. And why is that? That's because everything vibrates at a different frequency. Air, even though it's the same basic material as water, you can wave your hand and know that the air is there, even though you can't see it, right? It's the same material, but air vibrates at a different frequency than water. And this is why we're able to perceive the difference between air and water. Or if I swing my hand through the air and I hit my microphone boom, there's something there because this boom is vibrating at a different frequency that says to my sensual self that there is something vibrating at a different frequency. And this is when you get around certain people, you say, man, I just really vibe with them. Yes, and that's absolutely what happens. You vibe with them because they are vibrating at the same frequency as yourself. That's awesome. It's amazing. You are the message. See, listen, God is creation or the creator of all things, and she sends out a broadcast to the entire universe. And she is expecting that everything that she sends forth, that it has a purpose, that it does something, that it accomplishes something, that it does something that reveals who she is. And that's where we are. So if we want to change the world, and everybody looks at this world, and I mean, in 2020 has been this incredible shit show at so many levels, politically, racially, religiously, everything that you could think of, basically everything, almost everything that could possibly have gone sideways has gone sideways in 2020. And people say, well, how can I change the world? How can I be an agent of change? You have to understand the proper vibration. You have to understand your proper frequency. And first of all, in order to make your signal heard in the world, that you have to tap into something that amplifies your frequency. And guess what amplifies your frequency? Is people like you. Do you understand how racism is able to be perpetuated? Because racist mindset causes that human being to vibrate at a certain frequency. And what they do, that frequency either jumps to another vessel, or that vibration happens that attracts other races. Or that people, you ever find a bunch of people that, man, these people, when they get together, they're just so loving, they're so joyous, they're so, it's what happens is that they're vibrating at a certain frequency, and they find their tribe and they vibrate with them. And what happens is that frequency now becomes amplified or modulated and transformed, and it goes out into the world stronger than it would by itself. Do you understand that humanity is interdependent and interconnected. We're all in this together. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, either we will live together as brothers or we'll die together as fools. This is a true statement. And so what happens is that when people begin to vibrate at a negative frequency or at a frequency that's harmful to human life, they attract other frequencies like that. And y'all hear me. The only way to stop that, if you want to be a world changer, you have to vibrate at the frequency of love, and you have to come together with other people, like-minded people, people who believe not necessarily exactly like you, but let's say you're on the same wavelength, that you're on the same, at least on the same frequency band. In other words, you can't broadcast an AM signal on an FM band. You can't do it. It doesn't work. So you have to find people who are on, at least on your band, and then when you find the people that they're on your band, now all together you guys can vibrate. And when you vibrate, you start to attract others. And I'm telling you right now, you know, the Fifth Dimension sang about this in 1967 or 68. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. This is that time. This is that season. This is when people are coming together. People are dropping the religious blinders. They're dropping all of these doctrinal positions that have held them in bondage, and now they're awakening to this glorious, wonderful love. And as we begin to get into this love, guess what? Man, things start changing. And that's where we are. We're at an awesome time. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. I was on a podcast with my friend Glenn Klein the other day, and that podcast will drop on tomorrow. But I was telling him that I was pessimistic, and yes, I am pessimistic. There's a lot that hurts me and tells me that things are not getting better. But what I will say in contrast to that is that we are at a point of potential. We are at a point of recognition. We are at a point of reckoning that if we get this, then we have the possibility, the potential of changing everything. And that is exciting. You know, when I think about all the people that are dropping all the religious bullshit and getting away from that and just getting to loving humanity, loving people where they are, being with people, understanding the divine anthropology, getting rid of fucking theology and all of that stuff, and finally just getting to the point where we could come together like the Beatles said. Come together. It's so simple. But yet it's incredibly difficult. But I want you to know that you are a vessel. You are not just a container that contains something, but you are a conduit through which something flows. The very energy of all creation flows through you. And it's intended to get out and impact the world in some unique way that only you can do. Listen, let me tell you something. We are depending on you, and you are depending on the rest of us. We need each other. And we have to stop all of the strife. We have to stop all of this foolishness. But the only way that we're going to get to the point where this actually ends is love. That when we have empathy and compassion for one another, then and only then are we manifesting the love that we are created in. In other words, you might be great, but there has to be something that manifests that greatness and makes it visible for the world to see. You are the message. And listen, I believe that when we begin to vibrate at the proper frequency and we begin to come together as God intended, that what's going to happen is we'll see everything in creation differently. And I also believe, and this is for my rapture believing folks, because I don't believe that bullshit at all. But for those of you who do, you want to see Jesus? Start vibrating like Jesus. and Jesus will show up. And I believe that when Jesus does show up, when we begin to see him, we'll say, Lord, what took you so long? I don't say Lord anymore, but you might say that. What took you so long? And Jesus is going to ask us, I don't know, what took y'all so long? So that's what I have today. That's your quantum spirituality. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to visit my website, DerekDay.com. Click the link, mark contact, and it'll give you a form to fill out. You fill out the form, it sends me an email. And I will respond pretty much immediately. And if you have any other questions or comments, you can hit me up on Facebook Messenger, or you can reach me on Instagram or Twitter. My handle is Derek E. Day. That's DERRICKEDAY. And then all of these videos, eventually they wind up on YouTube. So go out to YouTube and check out those videos. And make sure that you check out the Heretic Happy Hour podcast with my co-hosts, Katie Valentine, Matthew DiStefano, and Keith Giles. It is a rocking good time where we actually just blow the doors off religious nonsense. and we just have a great time doing it. And also the Forward podcast, make sure you check that out. And want to give a quick shout out to my buddy, my brother, my friend and brother, Carl Forehand, for his new book, The Tea Shop. Go out to Amazon, get this book. Just want to make sure I give him a shout out. And I think that is about it. Forgot about my blog. You got to check out the blog, Love Minus Religion, on Patheos.com. So until the next time, as always, may you be happy. May you be well. May you be filled with peace. Namaste. I see the light in you. Namaste. I see the God in you. You are the message. Peace.